Hi, welcome to Peak Moment. I'm Janaea Donaldson. You know, as we end the era of cheap oil and gas, we're not going to be able to afford to be flying beef from Brazil to be eating here in North America. We're going to need to rely on our beef, our meat, and our supplies much closer to home. Tonight, my guests are two ranchers who here in Nevada County are bringing us grass-fed beef. But before we meet them, let's have the energy news with Rick. Hey, Rick.
Thanks, Janaea. Starting tonight, ABC News reports that researchers found that pesticide levels dropped to zero in children's bodies after eating an organic diet for only a few days. This study focused primarily on organophosphates, one more good reason for farmers to investigate organic farming. Reported from Arlington, Virginia, the Statue of Liberty will soon run on 100% renewable power, as well as Ellis Island Immigration Museum. Later this year, 22 more GSA-owned and operated facilities in New Jersey will also receive at least 10% of their energy from renewable resources supplied by Pepco Energy Services there. The Energy Bulletin reports that our Department of Defense is the single largest consumer of petroleum in the United States. In 2004, our military fuel consumption increased to 144 million barrels, costing $8.2 billion. The Army states they burn 40 million gallons of fuel every 3 weeks in Iraq alone. As of last November, over 2.1 billion gallons of fuel have been used in military operations since October of 2001. Last May, the Atlantic Monthly reported that our military now uses 1.7 million gallons per day in Iraq. Much of the oil used by our military is not tracked as either an import or an export. CNN Money reports that while gas prices are down a little, they'll likely go up again soon. The summer driving season will increase demand, and the switch from MTBE to ethanol will also increase prices. Another CNN Money report says that the switch from MTBE to ethanol may be especially expensive for the East Coast and Texas due to shortages of ethanol. Extra ethanol may be imported from Brazil, but it likely won't be enough to meet demand. Orders for durable goods dropped the most in over 5 years in January, as reported by CNN Money. The main cause was cited as a decline in orders for Boeing aircraft and other transportation equipment. No point in buying planes if the airlines can't afford the fuel. From the Denver Post, customers voted in 2004 to allow the local power utility there to increase the monthly bill for customers by 36 cents. This will allow about 3,000 customers to receive rebates for installing solar power over a period of 9 years. The vote also mandated 10% renewable energy by 2015, at least 4% being solar. And now peak oil goes to the dogs and cats. From the SF Gate News, San Francisco, Oakland, and other Bay Area cities have imposed a goal of zero trash by 2020. As a result, San Francisco may become the first city to convert pet excrement into methane to generate power. Pet feces compose 4% of San Francisco's residential waste. That's a big pile. Investigations are underway to determine the best way to implement this process. We'll keep you posted as we learn more. From Bloomberg News, oil could go as high as $80 to $96 a barrel by the third quarter of this year. The cause is attributed to rising demand from China this year and another potentially bad hurricane season here. The Sacramento Bee reports that many of the 25 Albertsons grocery stores and all the Ralph's grocery stores there will be closing sometime this year. Albertsons was bought by another company. These stores are closing because it's becoming more and more difficult to make a profit in the grocery business. This leads to the question of where will people buy food if grocery stores can't afford to stay in business? A worldwide shortage of silicon feedstock is making it hard to get solar panels. Germany and Japan are leading the demand for solar PV panels. In Palo Alto, for instance, there are 3 solar projects that will likely be delayed due to shortages. From the Rocky Mountain News, the mayor of Denver is proposing a 2-megawatt city-owned power plant. Power from the plant will offset some of the costs of the city's $600,000 a year jail utility expense. That's all the news for now, so back to Janaea and her guests.
Rick, I think that we ought to really support the pet pooper power plants. I think that's a great one for anywhere. But turning to my guests for tonight, I'm very glad to have with me Barbara and David Gallino, who are ranchers here in Nevada County and whose families have been here. Well, this is what, third generation for both of you. You've seen, well, your families have seen a lot of changes here. Tell me a little bit about, you know, a capsule from back then, and then let's talk about your ranch and what you do. You know, you said that your dad, no, your granddad.
My granddad got here in about 1914 and settled in Hills Flat. Had a dairy farm, went into milking cows, supplied milk to Grass Valley with a horse and wagon, and then with Model A's. And I myself milked up until 1960 when we sold the milking cows, got out of the milking business, and then went into beef production. Stayed into beef production till 77 when the home place in Hills Flat was sold. And then in 78, Barbara and I purchased a ranch down off McCourtney Road and began developing it.
So was the, when they sold the dairy, they went to, was it beef production with your dad,
Yes,
your family?
That was in beef production then, and there's 10 kids in that original family. Wow. So before it got down to our generations, and all those people could agree, they got clean the slate, which was a great deal, while everybody was still alive. And
so your ranch off of McCourtney, how large is it? How many cattle do you have?
Well, it's 160 acres, and we run around 100 head.
And how does that work? Tell us, you know, walk us through a cycle with your animals.
So we'll start in the spring. The cycle starts in the spring, and we also have ranches. We have a ranch leased in Shasta County for winter range. The cows will leave Grass Valley in November, go to Shasta till the middle of May or the 1st of June. Then they will come home to Grass Valley the 1st of June. They'll be processed there. By that I mean we'll put the bells on them and do the necessary vet work to the cows and the calves at the time. Get them paired up, create loads, 27 to 30 cows and calves for each truckload, put them in a separate field, ship them to a mountain allotment that we have on a mountain range for 3.5 months, and monitor them up there. Then we'll go up there and gather them the last 2 weeks of September, bring them back home the 1st of October, send the calves to sale, and do the necessary vet work on the cows, start the whole cycle all over again, and in November ship the mature herd back to our ranch in Shasta County. The replacements and our first calf heifers are kept at home so that we can keep an eye on the ones that are going to have their first babies in case there's any problems, anything going on there. Also our replacements, we separate them and feed them, get them growing so that we're going to bull them up 1st of February, and that's kind of what the cycle is right there.
Let's take a look. Since we've got some of your animals here on video, we can meet them and see a little bit of life on the Gallino Ranch here. Howdy, folks. Let's. I was ready to put on my cowboy boots here and my hat and see what I could do to join you for this.
Baby to the cow in the truck.
We're starting to
And there's the
put those cows together in what we call building a load.
Some of our calves.
So what time of year is this?
This is the spring. This would be around the 1st of June. Okay. Right now, we're getting ready to go to the mountains. So the bell is going on a cow right there. Put them in that green thing as a squeeze chute to restrain the cow. Put that bell around her neck. And now we put the wire around the strap to keep it from rubbing off because they want to scratch on a bush, and they'll hook a bush in there and they'll pull those bells off. Then if they pull the bell off, then you can't find them. So each cow that goes to the mountains gets a bell put on her and a piece of wire around it to keep that strap from coming unbuckled while they're up there. Myself and my cowboy Orrin.
How many guys do you have working with you?
It varies. We have lots of friends and family, and so right now we've probably got about 6 or 7 people that's going to be working with us on this go-round right here.
So these are the cows and their calves? Both?
Yeah,
Yep.
correct.
So what we're doing there is taking them from one field and putting them into another one so that when we get the corral cleared out,
They're sticky, they don't want to
we'll be able to move these up so we can load them onto the truck. And these are this is pairs. By pairs, I mean it's the right cow with the right calf. You have to have the baby, the right baby with its mama, or you have a real problem.
And there they go into the front field. Good job, David and Orrin. There they are. Putting them in the front field. Good job, guys. First load going out. Right now, they got it loaded.
It's a challenge in itself just to get everybody, paired up. And so the method that we use is that we make sure that the calf is nursing the cow, and then we go and grab that pair and put them into the other field. Then we know that we're right on.
You got it. There. So you've got 2, 3 loads, truck loads here, going up.
Those are my flowers. I love my flowers. You know that old saying? Yeah. Stop and smell the roses? Absolutely. Well, stop and smell the flowers.
That's a great view of your lives. And what I see is that's a lot of work. How many animals? Again, remind me.
Well, there's around 100 head, 100 plus head, so it'll vary 90, 110.
That's a lot, I would think.
It's a lot.
And yet to still have time to smell the roses in your lives?
Absolutely.
How do you do that?
How do we do that, honey?
Well, we just try to balance things. She also works out, and I also work out, and so it's a partnership on this whole deal.
So this is you're not able to, at this point, make a full-time living from your cow-calf operation. Is that right?
No, we're not.
No. But that was true in your grandfather's day, or perhaps your father's day?
Towards the end of my father's day, it became evident that it couldn't be done, and that was one of the reasons why they sold the milking cows, got out of the milk business, went into the beef cattle, and then took outside work also.
So what has changed when we look at this, sort of the challenges that he faced, that you face? Why is it not workable to do a full livelihood as it once was? And what would it take for us to be able to redo that in our community?
I don't think it will happen in this community here because of the loss of the structure of the land base for that particular type of agriculture. So you got to realize that with agriculture, less than 2% of the population is involved in agriculture. 59 years old is the average age. So, and we've been at this for 30 years of doing what we've been doing with both 2 outside jobs off the farm and still running the ranch. So it's probably because it's a labor of love. You like what you do, and you like the lifestyle. We like probably the independence that it gives us, so to speak, to work 24/7. But
I call it 25/8.
Bet it feels like that,
It
particularly
is.
certain
It really is.
parts of the season there. You're really working your tails off.
Right. But it is our choice. It's our choice that we...
So you're thinking people wouldn't, you said 2 things, we could have this kind of agriculture happening in our county because of
Growth.
Growth. Say more.
well, we don't have the land base.
We don't
So it
have the
takes
land.
about 17 acres for a stocking rate for a cow and a calf.
17 acres.
That's a rough rule of thumb.
So we've put too many houses. Is that what you're saying? We've got houses and buildings all over our land? Is that what you're saying, Barbara?
Yes, because where we live, we used to have there was 125 acres by us, and we used to utilize that. There was 40 acres across the street. We utilized that. There was 20 acres next to us, and they have sold, and then people don't want you there. They just don't want the cattle on there. I think because they don't understand, because cows do benefit the land. And maybe it's lack of education that we need to go and help them know about it, you know. But a lot of people just, you know, they buy big, you know, these big pieces of property, and then some of them subdivide them.
So with that fragmentation, we're not getting enough, there's not enough land to do this kind of...
That's why we have to go to Redding, and we lease out of Redding. And it's just, it's really sad. It really is sad, because generations coming up, they're not going to be able to do it.
Well, and when we have much, much higher prices for the fuel.
Oh.
I mean, you're trucking, what?
150 miles one way.
Right. Now, where are the animals being processed when they come to slaughter? What do you do for that? Because do we have facilities here, or is that more transport?
That's more transport.
That's more transport.
No matter where you go. And that's the problem with the individual doing small production right off the ranch, is if it has to be USDA inspected, the closest plant's in Orland. So we've got a 94-mile trip to Orland, one way, to get a USDA inspect.
Well, we do sell to people off of our land, but they need to let us know before we go to the mountains and gather, because when David is separating the steers, then he knows, okay, so we have maybe 10 people who say they want 10 steers. David will hold those back, they'll be shipped back home, and then they buy them on the hoof off of our place. But if it has to be USDA, then like David said, you know, it's a whole different...
So in the relationship where people buy directly from you, obviously it's a relationship of trust.
Right.
You know,
Right.
we're not asking the government to step in and certify you. We trust you and know how you are caring for your animals and
Right.
what you feed them and so on,
Right.
which would seem to me to be a far more cost-effective way of working. If you could do your whole operation in that way, would that even be desirable? Would you wish to be able to market all your beef here?
It is.
that way?
What's called value added. It adds value to our product because we don't have some of those other necessary steps in there. We're involved with a 6-county producer group called High Sierra Beef, where we're using ultrasound technology at weaning at 500 pounds, and then also at between 1050 and 1200 pounds, to make sure that these animals will provide a consistent experience for the people that are going to eat them. In other words, if this animal's not ultrasounded, we don't know until we slaughter the animal, get the hide off it, and then it's graded whether it's going to be select, choice, or where it's going to be. So by utilizing this ultrasound, it gives us the advantage of creating these animals down into the window that we know that they're going to be acceptable.
Why don't we take a look at some of your pictures that you've got about how you work with some of your animals here.
Okay.
And people can make. Go
Okay,
ahead.
there we are. We're getting, this is spring work that we're going to do there, and there's the dogs are trying to hold one up from coming in the squeeze chute, and right there they're trying to put some into the corral. Those cattle are going to go into the corral, and they're going to get a bell put on her, and there's a piece of the meadow in the mountain range where those cattle are going to go for the summer.
So that's in Shasta?
No, that's
summer.
That's summer
right.
range
Okay.
up here.
Okay.
This is a piece of winter range in the Shasta Ranch right there, and cattle are browsing there. That is also some summer or winter range in Shasta County. And there's some family. There's my great nephew, and so it's just. And there's a sunset that probably makes this all worthwhile.
Absolutely.
There's a truck being unloaded in Shasta.
So they're grass-fed up in the everywhere they go. Is
Yes.
that right?
And there's another great nephew.
Look at that cowboy.
Cowboy roping up
Wants to
a
rope.
bucket there to get. And there's a group of cattle in the corral that we're getting ready to process, and that's in at the Shasta County Ranch there. That's Barbara and I at our home ranch with some grass-fed products that we're looking at. There's some family at looking over the herd in Shasta.
Now tell us about this. It says Conservationist of the Year, 1993, David and Barbara Gallino. Yes? What was this about?
In the fall of '92, we had a fire on the back of our property, and it burnt probably 60 acres. And so I got a hold of the soil conservation folks to see what we could do, how we could restore the land, and they provided us with the technical experience, what we needed to do in the seed recommendation. And so Barbara and I and a couple of neighbors went out there with belly grinder hand seeders and walked this 60 acres on a side hill over there, and we seeded it. And
that's a lot of land. That's a lot of walking.
Yeah.
Seeded with what? What did you put on?
Well, we put blando brome and blondo brome and a ryegrass and 3 different kinds of crimson, rose.
So a lot. Were they native grasses that
well,
we
they're
have
not native
here?
grasses, but it's what's classified as a Nevada County mix. It's been developed for Nevada County,
there.
And it's
that sounds fun.
something that you get established real quick to stop erosion and also provide a forage base for our cattle to come back to the following year.
And it sounds like it worked.
Yeah, it
Yes,
worked,
it did
and
really well.
so
It
then
really
they rewarded us by giving us that
great.
reward. So
Let's go back and see some more of your animals here in your process.
there's a group of that's a group of first calf heifers, and they're at our home place right there. And there again is a meadow in the mountains that we will gather to when these cattle get kicked out in the mountains. Then we have to gather them back there. There's a group of 60 people of Farm Bureau, Nevada County Farm Bureau people coming together for a barbecue and wildflowers.
Yeah, Barbara's
Yeah,
wildflowers.
wildflowers.
Yeah.
And that's a picture of the trucks. And we're checking the inside of the truck to make sure there's nothing left in there. We don't want to send one back. And there's our future buckaroos. And there's a group of family and friends that get together in the spring of the year to help process those cows, put the bells on them. Again, Barbara and I in one of our fields at home. A group of cows in the corral getting ready to be shipped home. Same thing.
Is that a
Winter range
fence?
in Shasta County,
It's between fields.
and the meadow in our mountain gathering pasture.
You know, we have people that at the Farm Bureau that they come into our cabin in the summertime, and it's really very beneficial because they really come up there, and of course, if you went up there, you'd see just trees. So the first thing they ask is, where are the cows? And the second thing they ask is, what do they eat?
Yeah, I would probably say the same thing.
Our cows have their heads up more than they do down because it's a brush range.
And they're fine with
They eat
being
a lot
brush browsers.
Oh yeah, they eat a lot of birch, lots of birch. But it's interesting because we're educating the people, you know, that, I mean, they don't understand it.
Who will carry this on? You know, you asked about the average farmer being, what, 59 and a half. The knowledge that you have between you, you know, of
Yes.
how to run this, who will carry this on?
It's very scary because they don't make it feasible for the generations to come in because you really can't make a living at it. You know, and it's a lot of hard work.
And most kids today perhaps
don't-
aren't interested in that kind of.
Because the return isn't there. Okay?
It's what's frightening to me is if our farmers can't make it and nobody's farming, how will we eat? I
Well,
think we don't know.
You know, it's really, you don't want to get political, but it's really interesting because the bottom line is, what are we going to eat? If they don't make it feasible for the ranchers to stay in business, the developers come in, they have the money and they offer the ranchers more money than we could ever imagine we would ever earn. And then it's
Which
developed.
is your retirement.
And
I mean,
exactly.
right? It's your retirement.
We're tired and wore out.
It's developed, and then what are we eating? I mean, we imported more food than we exported.
That's right.
That's
And
scary.
That's right, and that's vulnerable to
Absolutely.
to anything from
If we
terrorist
can't,
attacks,
if we can't
unfortunately,
feed
or
our
high
people,
fuels.
then what are we doing?
That's for sure.
So
That's why small producers will have an opportunity to probably stay in business with like 3 to 5 animals, because if you have 20 or 40 acres, you can probably carry that many on there. But but you have to be a small one.
Very small.
You're right, and so we're right. You know, we're kind of in the middle. I think the average herd is like 60 head. And what ends up having to happen is you're going to end up you have to go further north or east to colder climates, Nevada, Idaho, Oregon, if you want to continue the ranching business, to get enough of a land base where you can carry yourself. It takes around 400 head to support a family.
400 head.
Yeah.
And that's how many acres?
Well, that
Depends on
depends
the
the
grazing.
ground, because
If you're in Nevada, you need much more
Wow.
acreage because it takes more acreage to keep a cow.
different parts of the ground.
It's going to come down to you're going to have to own your property in order to run your cattle. That's really the concept of it. And a lot of people are going out of state and buying ranches, and with generations that are younger. So because they're too old to run it, so you depend on the younger ones coming up which they want to do, and I mean, you're going to have to own your land in order to
None of the outside ground that we have, if we just stay at home, we'll be able to run between 15 and 20 head on that amount of ground there year round. But
this makes for challenging times. I'm heartened that you're doing this. I'm heartened that the High Sierra beef is here, giving us the chance to have. I will add that I had my first bit of High Sierra beef this summer, and it was like first bite, and I had the sense like, this is how I remember how good beef tasted. And I got away from eating beef because it was like in the last decades, it's not interesting. It's so heartening to have
and
this
there
here.
Is a difference.
Big difference.
There's
it's
a
like
real big
just
difference.
This instant memory. Thank you so much for
being
being here with us. Thank you for continuing to run your cattle for us and facing those challenges. Any last little bit of wisdom that you want to share here on what would you tell a future farmer, a future rancher?
Go for your dream.
Oh.
Follow your dream, because you can get it.
Yeah, and to see what we see, like people in the city, I know the money's there in the city, but when we walk out and change the water to see that sun come up, it's amazing.
I know that there's hope tomorrow, because 2 days ago, actually February the 21st, we heard our first sandhill cranes going north. Yeah. So that's always an inspiration for us again, that there is
that
hope.
Life is continuing, the cycle is continuing, and of course you on the land and with your animals and animals being born and moving on, you get to see the whole cycle.
That's right.
Yep.
Thank you. What a beautiful affirmation of life.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us on Peak Moment. I'm Janaea Donaldson. Join us for the next half-hour episode of Peak Moment. Community responses to a changing energy future.